We are the final word. Adam Collins, Jeff Lemon, Perth Stadium. Gorgeous evening here in Perth. We never said anything nasty about Perth in the first place.
No.
I don't know why people think we did.
No.
I keep coming back to this point over and over in the week that we're here. You know what? That's not what we're here to talk about. It's about the cricket inside Perth Stadium, which we watched over 90-odd overs today, and you'll describe all of that in 30-odd seconds.
None for 74 and West Indies resumed wicket in the first over. Tajnarayan Chandapal nicked to slip, but there was always resistance. The wickets kept coming, the Australians chiselled them out, but someone always fought back. Whether it was Shamar Brooks for a while as a concussion sub, whether it was Jason Holder with the bat, whether it was Jermaine Blackwood. A couple of wickets in the second session for the Australians. They finally found the length. The resistance went on after the tea break. And even though they only made 280-something, 283, sounds good. They batted for 98 overs in which to do so. So, you know, they put up some fight. Australia are batting again, 315 in front when they started, and plus a bit more by the time they finished.
So 344 ahead with Warner still there on... He's on 17. And Labuschane's 3. Khawaja was out early. We'll come to that dismissal a little bit later in the Hall of Fame. Teaser, spoiler. I share your view that the West Indies applied themselves really well today, but I guess the problem was they lost 6 for 39. After the new ball was taken, where Australia ran rampant. Ran on the rampart. Let's go where I started with. Ran
rampant.
They did all of those
They
things.
Ravi Rampalt around the Ragged Rocks.
Who was playing
the
in the
Rugged
Windies team
Rascal
the last time they played at Perth back in 2009, Ravi Rampalt.
Sure.
But the problem, that the issue was always going to be that once they were able to get rid of Brathwaite, as they did with the second new ball, I think it was then.
No, that was earlier.
Oh, that was earlier,
Yeah,
my
much
apologies. It was 54th over, 55th over. I've got it all written down. Brathwaite, bowled by Cummins, beauty, reminiscent of the ball that he bowled to Joe Root at Old Trafford to get the party started in 2019 in England's second innings there. It was almost a replica. What a fitting delivery to take Cummins to 200 test wickets at an average of 21 and a half. He's got 116 of those in Australia at 20, and we know that, yes, it's his home country, but I mean, if you take your test wickets at 20 in Australia, you're going pretty well.
Well, they're not always very bowling-conducive surfaces, and that's what he's done.
And the resilience as well, 41 of 44 test matches he's played since his, well, it would have been more than that now, but it was 41 from 44 at one point from when he came back from that injury. I say one injury. Myriad injuries at Ranchi in 2017. So I was so pleased that he did it with a screamer of a delivery, having to wait for a long time at Gaul, for quite a long time in this first innings, despite how well he bowled this morning.
And the fact that it was the opposition captain as well.
All of that,
It was skipper to skipper. It was like some hot, erotic, maritime /fiction, and there was movement. There was substantial movement. The thing was, it wasn't substantial. It was that just enough movement where he angles it in, seems it away ever so slightly. Brathwaite's got just a very slightly angled bat as he tries to defend the ball, sneaks past the edge, boom, top of off stump. As you say, it's the Joe Root delivery. I think there've been 4 bowlers to get to 200 faster than Cummins. He's up there with
Grimmett, Lilly, Warner, McGill.
That sounds like that's a good list of leg spinners, none of whom should have ever been dropped by Donald Bradman from the Australian team. And the players that he's level with, I mean, Alec Betts is in there, Joel Garner's in there, Richard Hadley's in there. They're not shabby. They're not bad players, they've got a claim to being recognised as decent cricketers. So, but what I thought was most impressive was that came after the lunch break, in his spell after the lunch break, because it was really hard work to find exactly the right length to bowl on this pitch. And I've been trying to work out this pitch for the last couple of days, because at a point after the lunch break, there have been 5 wickets in 2.5 days.
Yeah.
And you're thinking like, people are sending me messages saying, another road, another highway. But it's not.
Yeah, and the Australians went out there at lunch, didn't they? They sat there for the second day in a row. The Australian team went out to the pitch and got nice and close and personal with it, as if to kind of try and work out themselves. Is there something amiss here? Because even before lunch today, that first spell between... Hazelwood gets a wicket in the first over, we should say. Chandapal nicks off after reaching 50.
As discussed, but it doesn't then flow from there.
No, but the bowling's... I mean, Cummins could have taken a slew of... Likewise, Hazelwood. They were so good at the start. It was just one of those times when 2 guys together who are doing everything right but can't get any luck. And that's fine, that's part of the game. And also Brathwaite was able to get the bat inside the line a lot and to fight it out the way that he does so well. Remember, this guy faced 489 balls in a test innings against England this year.
Yep. And Nkrumah Bonner did his job as well, played late, waited for the deliveries. He was sort of cautious enough without completely going into his shell, played a couple of shots when the ball was there, didn't try to do anything too much. And I felt for him because he was going along really nicely.
Yep.
And then he gets hit in the head by Cameron Green. The crowd were chanting, they want Green, and finally the Western Australian comes on. And I mean, he's 190,000 centimetres tall, and he bowls, when he bowls short, it comes very naturally to him. He can try to bowl a length ball and it's a short ball. And he gets that vicious bounce, and it clips him in the sort of the back of the helmet. He bats on for a while, for a few more overs, but gets to the drinks break and says, actually, I can't do this anymore. And I mean, what doing with that as well? The doctor comes out and says, you're fit to keep batting, and then 20 minutes later he says, no, I'm not, I'm coming off.
I think there's a bit to this. Well, first of all, it's like, I think Cameron Green must have been listening to like Pat Benatar all fired up before he started. His first over, he was running in with a head of steam, bowling bumpers, bowling quickly, getting up in the face of the batters in a way that Green doesn't normally do. I mean, he does all the first bits, but not the getting up in the face of the batters, and hits Bonner in the lid over the back of the helmet. I wonder whether on that we might have reached a point where we need to just take players off by default. I'm not saying I think this for sure, but I wonder whether there might be a point where we have to take players off by default for a time away, because we're seeing these delayed concussions. I mean, it's not as though Bonner was under any less risk after getting the assessment in the middle between then and going off.
Sure.
So I appreciate they're trying their best. I'm not having a go at anyone here, but maybe we need to appreciate that there is an extra layer of testing that needs to be done. One suggestion, I was speaking to Callum Ferguson today, who said that maybe they need to give access to the technology to the medical staff and get to watch with their own eyes the replay a few times.
Like how bad
on
the
their
contact
iPads.
was.
Like if your doctor can watch it a dozen times close up on a screen rather than just doing the concussion test and go, right, well, that's hit you flush on the back of the helmet. The balance of probability is you're going to have concussion. You may not be presenting symptoms right now, but we better get you off for an hour and just make sure. I mean, anyway.
And because we see a lot of contact where it's a very glancing, it just clips the helmet and it doesn't actually rattle the head that much. But equally, you can have players who are more susceptible to concussions than others who will be concussed from an impact that wouldn't concuss somebody else. So it's just such an inexact. There's very little science to it, really. It's almost completely post hoc. It's what happens later, and everything has to be done in hindsight, basically. So, it's an invidious position for them to be in. But that means he's off the field, he doesn't get replaced as the concussion sub formally until after the lunch break. But Blackwood comes out, and we've known Blackwood in the past as being a slap and dasher, sort of wave it around in the wind kind of guy. Didn't play like that, hasn't played like that recently.
He's a better player now.
Yeah, he has.
His strike rate's gone
changed.
down, his average has gone up.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's coincidental. I mean, I remember watching him get out. The first test I covered properly, like at the ground as a commentator, was in Dominica in 15, and he got to 50 odd, and he gave the Windies a chance in that second dig before playing one of the most outlandish shots you'll ever see to get caught on the rope completely against the flow of play. And I always remembered that watching him bat subsequently. I would have slagged him off on this podcast many times, and it's as though that after his recall in England in 2020 for the bio bubble test matches, the 95 he made in that wonderful fourth innings chase, just turned his whole career around. He's been a pretty consistent operator, and I know he gets out for 35 today, his leg before wicket.
But he faced 108 balls.
But he did a job.
He fought through from that first session until after the tea break, and he was the one who was still there even when wickets fell at the other end. So that thing I was talking about with the pitch was trying to figure out, like, is this flatter than it looks? Because there is grass on it. That doesn't always necessarily mean anything. But there was good bounce throughout, and basically it meant that you just had to hit, like it was good for batting, but if you hit that perfect length, then you could start to trouble a players. So that's what Cummins does, and then that's what Stark does a couple of overs later. His version of the Cummins delivery beats the inside edge on this occasion of Kyle Mayers. Same result, top of off stump. And then there's more resistance. There's Jason Holder coming in and saying, all right, I'm going to bat with Blackwood. They put on 53 together. Holder hits a couple of boundaries off line, then launches him for a big six, and eventually he gets caught.
But the way he got out, I reckon the way he got out relates to the knock to the helmet too, right? Hit on the helmet the previous over, and then next over, line bowling to him. One ball to get through, gets caught in a leg side trap, which they set up for him round the wicket. So Lyon would have been thrilled with that mode of dismissal, Warner taking it low into his left. And it was immediately after Holder had also been, not as anywhere near as direct a blow as the one that got Bonner earlier, but a glancing blow. And the extent to which that might have
Yeah.
played into his thinking at that particular juncture, we'll never really know, but
Sure.
it goes to that hostility the Australians were able to bring today on that surface you're referring to.
So Blackwood comes back after tea with Shamar Brooks, who's been brought in as the concussion sub. I find this interesting as well, that a concussion sub can bat in the same innings as the previous player.
Fifth time it's happened.
So, yeah, and it's happened a few times, but it means, if you've got a player who's made 180 and then gets hit in the head, they can be replaced by a fresh new batter who can come in and bat for them. It doesn't really sit right for me. So if a fast bowler bounces you and hits you in the arm and breaks your arm, too bad, your team's down a player, see you later. But if they hit you in the head, you get a replacement player to come in, even if you've made a stack of runs already.
Yeah, there's a reason for this. The reason for it is that you don't want sides gaming concussion rules. So by that I mean what we saw with Smith at Lords in 19 when he came back out to bat when he shouldn't have.
Sure.
If teams don't feel like they have the ability to bring someone in to complete the innings, they will not declare their batters concussed. They'll push their batters out the door if they need them late, and you need to, I think, give them that security blanket. They feel comfortable having a Brooks to come in. Otherwise, Bonner might have walked in at 9 down today. Now, he probably wouldn't have in these circumstances, but we have seen that before.
If there'd been a game
we
on
have
the
seen
line,
that before. Well, Justin Langer, when he was insisting on batting, when he was in all sorts of trouble in South Africa in early 06, there's an example of where, thankfully, he wasn't required, but as he said, after his career, he was going to try. And he was in no place to bat.
And then new ball, and Stark pitches it up and starts swinging it, bangs Blackwood on the pad. That one would have been clipping leg stump, then goes straight through poor old Josh Da Silva, who...
How about that ball, by the way? Josh Da Silva, they showed the split screen on, I think it was 7, between where does that ball go if it doesn't swing, compared to what it did. I think it hit middle and leg. That was like almost outside the tram tracks in one-day cricket. It was going to be so wide on the angle. It would have been taken in front of first slip. It's just a reminder of when Stark gets that hooping ball back to the right-hander and nails it, especially when the ball's new, it's still close enough to the most lethal weapon in world cricket. It was being able to bowl full after a day of trying to hit that perfect sort of proper fast bowling length, then being able to pitch it up and swing it through. And really, Shamar Brooks plays a little flirt outside the off stump and nicks off to Cameron Green, gives him a wicket. First ball of a new spell, changed ends, Green. You deserve that wicket, Green, because he bowled so well earlier from the Langer stand end. They bring him back, give him a go with the second new ball, and when he gets Brooks, it's pretty much all over from that point.
Very, very quickly runs through it. So Cummins picks up a couple more. Lyon gets one caught at slip. Cummins finishes with 3 for Stark, finishes with 3 for a couple for Lyon, 1 for Green, 1 for Hazelwood. And it's a comprehensive enough performance for Australia, but I liked the fact that they really had to sweat for it. And there was never any question about follow-on or anything, no matter how far ahead they were, because they're tired, because they wanted more of a break. So
I'm still detecting a bit of this online, by the way, that people are shitty about the follow-on not being enforced because Australia are ahead by 315 runs. I mean, back-to-back test matches, they're playing 5 tests in 6 weeks. They go to India after that. They're never going to risk picking up an injury in order to try and finish the test in 4 days. They don't care at this point if it goes to day 5, because it almost certainly will anyway. It's just about giving, and David Warner said as much after play, it's not about gaming it, it's about going, well, the bowlers get half a session off here, they won't declare until at least lunch, probably closer to tea. They'll have loads of time.
And they get to start late tomorrow, basically spend some more time rehabbing and warming up and doing all the things that they need to do before.
And that's not us being anti-follow-on, by the way. There are times when it's strategically the right thing to make a team follow-on to press home the advantage. If you bowl a side out in 40-odd overs and you've not really drawn down on your resources and you can smother a team the second time, then like Australia did at the Oval in 15 or Hobart in 15 as well.
If the bowling conditions are really conducive, but they're not, as we saw from how hard they had to work the first time around. Often the follow-on innings you've got to work harder because your bowlers are a bit more tired. You're not starting with that fresh burst, and so if you're starting after 98 overs, then you're asking for injuries. Basically, you're asking for problems rather than taking a more conservative approach.
On the way through to the Final Word Hall of Fame for woodstockcricket.co.uk, TFW20 is the code. I took a photo. I put it on Twitter of the first time we've seen a Woodstock bat used in a Test match in Australia when Josh Da Silva walked out. We've already referred to his dismissal where bat got nowhere near the ball because of the ball that he was facing. But boy, when he was taking guard, it sure looked pretty. Why wouldn't you want a bat that's now being used in Test cricket in Australia, independently verified as the best cricket bat in the world? Treat yourself before Christmas. TFW20 is the code. Woodstockcricket.co.uk. woodstockcricket.co.uk. Congratulations, Josh De Silva, for being here on this tour.
Yes, and it will be very easy to make a snide remark about him lasting 3 balls, but he will have other innings, and he's already made 100 with that Woodstock bat.
Sure has.
And I hope he's going to make more, the West Indies keeper. Hall of Fame, what leapt out at you as the most amusing moment of your day?
4,733 days for poor old Kemar Roach since his last wicket in Australia. It came completely against the flow of play. Usman Khawaja just tried to leave one, didn't really leave it properly. That was the only ball that Roach had bowled to that point that wasn't pretty much a 4 ball. And he gets his first wicket. The previous one was Ricky Ponting over at the Wacker in 2009 when Ponting was batting down at number 9. I should say, by the way, you might be listening to this podcast and wondering why we haven't spoken about Ricky Ponting as yet today. So Simon Kadich has confirmed he's spoken to him. He'll be back at work tomorrow. So that, I mean, obviously, when that story broke that he'd had a heart scare earlier today, that news swept through the stadium. But yeah, it's all good. He's had the necessary tests and he'll be back here working for Channel 7 tomorrow. But yeah, so Kemar Roach finally breaks the hoodoo. Had he not got a wicket in this innings, pink ball test next week, he may never have taken a red ball wicket again in Australia in all probability.
Come on. You can't be going around with those sort of technicalities.
I know, but the point still remains that hopefully he'll be in good nick tomorrow.
Well, maybe he ends up with 6 for 30 tomorrow, rips through them. And
changes the game.
And the West Indies.
And they chased down 418 like they did Antigua all those years ago.
With a Chandapal in the side, as they had then, if memory serves correctly.
Indeed.
My Hall of Fame is this. Rowdy bunch of supporters down behind the bowler's arm. They, as you will have seen online, they threw their Justice for Justin Langer banner over the side of the thing. JL equals Justice League, I suppose, in the eyes of some. And it wasn't that, because that story is not particularly interesting to me, but it was the fact that our colleagues in the press box all went, ooh, story. And suddenly they vanished, like the whole press box was empty, because they'd all gone down there to see if they could get a juicy quote or run this story up. Then they all came back upstairs about half an hour later looking dejected. I said, what's going on? And they said, they were all 15. Like, you can't quote a 15-year-old. It was just a joke. They were just mucking around. They don't care. So,
they've been good, those fellas. They've been chanting. They had the Jason Holder body paint on again today. They had they were trying to get one of Holder's shirts. I hope Holder gives them all of his kit after this test match, because they have backed him in all the way through his innings, both with the ball and with the bat. What I liked out of all of that, by the way, was that Langer, apparently when they were debating, I didn't see this, so I might not have all the details spot on, but let me go with it. When I think Messi Jez, who is one of our final word friends here in Perth, put this on Twitter, I'll trust him. Langer was saying that, for the concussion sub, what they could do is get Brian Lara to come and bat for them. So it's perfect, JL. Get the former great out there.
Why not? I mean, he's still pretty trim. I saw him play in the bushfire game a couple of years ago, and he was peeling them off nicely. And
makes sense to me.
Smoking them in the nets too. So why not? I think that's it for today. This has been the Final Word Daily, woodstockcricket.co.uk. If you want one of those sweet bats at a sweet discount. And we'll be back for day 4, and it looks like at this stage, day 5, West Indies, Australia, at Perth. Jeff Lemon, Adam Collins. See you next time.
Good night.